All right, welcome back from sports. You're still watching TVC Breakfast. Now, since he assumed office on May the 29th, 2015, President Muhammadu Buhari has set about implementing three cardinal objectives of his administration, which are war against corruption, fight against insecurity, and improving the economy.
However, many Nigerians who have described his effort as laudable believe a lot still needs to be done, especially in the areas of human rights. President Buhari's 2-year stay in office has left people in doubt as to his stance on this issue. Now,
they say the continued incarceration of a former National Security Advisor, Sambo Dasuki, despite several court rulings, was a clear violation of his rights. Another case is that of Shiite leader Ibrahim El-Zakzaki and his wife, who have been in detention since December 2015, despite court orders to produce both in court.
The Nigerian army has also come under attack with accusations of human rights abuses and violations in the Northeast. International Human Rights Watch organizations have countless times accused the military of blatant disregard for human rights in their fight against insurgency. So our discussion today will focus on how this administration has fared in the last 2 years in relation to upholding the rights, your right as a Nigerian.
Indeed. Now, joining us on phone from Lokoja is a lawyer, Onyeka Ubani. Good morning and thanks for joining us. How is Lokoja this morning?
Yeah, Ngozi, how are you? Good morning.
Very well, thank you.
Good morning to your second presenter.
My name is Busola and you are in my state. Busola, how is my state faring?
Very interesting.
All right, thank you.
Now, would it be fair, really, to make an assessment of below average as far as human rights is concerned on the Buhari administration, looking at these 4 cases that we've cited, the Shiite leader detention, of course, Sambo Dasuki's detention, and 1 or 2 others, Nnamdi Kanu of IPOB?
Well, the last one you mentioned, Nnamdi is on bail, and he's enjoying his bail somewhere in Umuahia.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, when you talk about democracy, you must emphasize the issue of rights, and rights are enshrined in the Constitution. It's given a very prominent place in Chapter 4 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. And one of the areas used in judging any democratic governance is the issue of respect of fundamental human rights. Now, how has this present government fared with regard to that? But one thing you must realize is that this is no longer the military administration we used to know. People have been criticizing President Buhari himself. People have even rumored that he's dead when he's not dead and all that. And nobody has actually in that regard been arrested, which is different from if it was under the military regime. Some of the things some of us say in television and radio would have been curtailed, and some of us would have been in detention by now. So with regard to that, there has been some level of respect with the issue of freedom of expression. But where people are having issue with this government is just on the issue of respect to orders of the court, competent orders of the court. And you have cited actually the 2 ones that even those who are his admirers are also saying that there must be something to be done by this present government with regard to that. I'm talking about detention of Dasuki and that of Zakzaki. If there are competent orders of court made in regard to their release, and then you have no reason to have charged them to court, or you are wasting time charging them to court, then you have no other choice other than to release them unconditionally. I mean, that is what the law says. And so there is an issue with regard to those 2 cases, and people have been advising this present government to respect the court order with regard to their release.
Okay, Onyeka, let's just stay with such cases and stay with what the Constitution says. You understand the case of the Supreme Court in 1991, Hart versus Hart, where the judge was talking about the sacrosanct of obedience to the court order, where the judge said if you don't even obey that, it's tantamount to disturbing the peace of the country, and the alternative is resulting to the crude way of settlement where you may have to even go to war. And this present administration is quick to refer to the Constitution when it's very convenient. Remember the case of Magu saying the Constitution trumps the EFCC Act. And the Constitution is very explicit when it comes to obeying court order, when it says that the decision of the Federal High Court the National Industrial Court, that of High Court, and all other courts established by the Constitution shall be enforced in any part of the Federation and obeyed by any of all authorities and persons. So, what do you have to say to that?
That's what I'm saying. I say in regard to democracy, one of the criteria you use in judging a democratic government is respect to rule of law and the Constitution. In my own take concerning this administration, apart from these two specific disobedience to court orders you've mentioned, but they may even give you reason why they are holding them. By and large, it has not been bad. It's still preferable to military dictatorship, where you cannot come and say what you have just said now. If it is under the military that you have analyzed what you have just said or what the court has said, I mean, they will be monitoring your your television house. But under this dispensation, I mean, all that freedom, is exercised, apart from these two known cases. But I also know that even in America, with their high level of democracy and all that, there are times, human rights organizations and international bodies have accused America of trampling on people's rights, even though it's not something that we should clap for and all that. There has been this issue of disobedience even to some of the provisions of the Constitution by advanced nations and all that, but we are not encouraging it at all. We must insist that either we're in democracy or we're in dictatorship. So if we're in democracy, there are tenets of democracy we must try as much as possible to practice. And one of them is the issue of respect to court orders. So if the court has made a pronouncement that somebody you have charged to court should be released on bail and that the matter is bailable, and they have satisfied all the conditions for bail, then you have no reason whatsoever to hold the person anymore. If you do that, then you are disobeying the authority that sets you up, because it's even the court that actually sets up the government. So you cannot afford to disrespect that particular arm of government that actually sets up.
Barrister Monday Obani, let's put you on hold. Stay on the line with us as we take a quick break and come back. All right, thanks for staying with us. Barrister Monday Obani, former NBA chairman, Lagos chapter, is on the line with us looking at the human rights record of this administration. Monday Obani, I recall having a chat with you during the heydays of this issue of human rights in the early days of this administration. And you did point to the fact that, look, these are grievous issues in terms of Dasuki's incarceration or remaining in custody for this long, and of course other issues. And the president himself did say the same thing, that look, these are peculiar cases and you cannot grant these people bail in spite of all the different court orders.
And now look at what the law says. If any man has committed any crime in any state, and I think the highest crime you can commit in any state is treasonable felony. If anyone has committed any crime, what you do is to investigate and then charge that accused person to court. There is no law anywhere in the world that allows what you call indefinite detention of an accused person. There is no law anywhere in the world, no matter the gravity of the offense of an accused person. What the law requires you to do is to gather your pieces of evidence together and then assemble your team of prosecutors and then ensure that the person is charged to court. Now the court now makes a finding after the evaluation of the evidence you have presented by the prosecution. Is either he finds that accused person liable and guilty. If you are found guilty, then the next thing to do is to sentence that accused person to terms of imprisonment, or if there's an option of fine. Now, if you have done that, the law allows that person now to be detained for the number of years or time the law allows for detention of that accused person who has been found guilty. That is what the law allows. But the law presumes every person that is accused of a crime to be innocent until the contrary is proved. So the moment you are holding that person that is presumed to be innocent indefinitely without conviction, you are violating your law, because your law says that accused person is presumed to be innocent until the contrary is proved. So you cannot hold somebody that is presumed to be innocent indefinitely. If you are doing that, then you are violating your law.
All right.
Are you following me? So that is the position of the law. So no matter the gravity of the offense somebody is alleged to have committed, that person is still presumed innocent in the eyes of the law until you have convicted that person by virtue of the evidence you present before the court.
All right, Monday, you know that this human rights issue also goes beyond just obeying court order. There are also cases of a right to life, which we've seen in the case of Desmond Onugu, who died in EFCC custody last year. Up to tomorrow, we've not heard anything from the AGF. He promised to look into the matter, but we've not heard anything. The Constitution upholds your right to life. The Human Rights Charter upholds your life to right. Why is the government back in track on its promise to the Nigerian people?
I think that question should be posed to the government. You know, if somebody is arrested, and as I said earlier, that person is presumed innocent, then you must ensure that that person is brought to trial. You must ensure that his life is protected. Because, as you rightly pointed out, the right to life is guaranteed under the Constitution. So if that person dies under your custody in questionable circumstances, then you have to account for that individual because he's a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So it's important that that life is guaranteed. Apart from even life, you know, issue of harassment. A lot of people call me on daily basis to talk about police harassment. You know, on the road, they are walking, police will just arrest them and then, you know, take them to police station and ask them to start billing themselves with a certain amount of money. That is a violation of citizens' rights. So we must ensure that in everything we do under democratic governance, that we respect people's rights, or except that right has been acknowledged to be violated under the law. It's under the law that you can now abridge somebody's right. And the provision is also there in the Constitution. Under circumstances, you can abridge the right of an individual. You know, there are derogatory clauses in our Constitution. So unless those derogatory clauses are applied, then you have no right to violate any citizen's right. So we must ensure that we respect people's right. We don't arrest people and ask them to come and bail themselves. Bail is even free in the first place. And you don't just, because you want to make money, do that. Or kill people who are in your detention, or, you know, use all manner of unorthodox method in order to extract what you call confessional statement. These are violations of people's rights, and we must condemn it, and we must not allow it to operate in democracy.
And of course, I wonder how you would react to the Human Rights Watch report on the military's engagement in the war against Boko Haram. But before we allow you to answer that, let's bring in Foladele. Good morning, Foladele.
Good morning, ladies. Good to see you, Salami. It's been a few days.
Yes.
Okay, so let's find out what people are saying online about human rights, the rule of law, and of course, references being made to the 4 specific cases that you mentioned earlier. Kozie Nwachuku says, democracy means that this government should adhere to the tenets of the rule of law and release Zakzaki and Dasuki amongst other things. Use Your Head says, we can only have a united one Nigeria if we get justice, equity, and the rule of law right. Today, it seems we've gone off the tangent. Haifi says, violation of human rights, unlawful detention of Zakzaki, Nnamdi Kanu, and BOG, Dasuki, etc. Yemi says Kanu is a big threat to the peace of the Nigerian state, a man that is flouting his bail conditions. He has no honor, no integrity, shame. And someone replied to that saying, correct, I guess we can also say that the FG is a threat to our peace in Nigeria for flagrantly disregarding bail orders on Zakzaki and Dasuki. Fair? Ikemefuna Okonkwo says, Nigeria's government only obeys court orders that favors them. Without rule of law, there is nothing like democracy. Sheyi says, I dream of a Nigeria where the rule of law will prevail and where there will be observance of human rights. Amen. Okay. So, quickly, Barrister Obani, someone said the government in Nigeria only obeys the rule of law when it favors them. What do you make of that statement?
What do you want me to say? I'm not in government yet, but I think, you know, they may be right in some instances, they may not be right, it may not be right in all instances. As I said earlier, you know, we are free to express ourselves, you know, on radio and television, and nobody has come after us. I have not heard of any adverse person who has made some statement against the government that has been arrested. If you look at the social media, especially on Twitter, all those guys, you know, Reno and Fayoshe and Fani Kayode, they've been saying things, you know, which under the military they would have been in detention, but they have been allowed to express themselves. So, but there are areas we want this government to improve on the issue of human rights.
Finally, before we let you run along, Monday Obani, Human Rights Watch report on the military's engagement in the war against Boko Haram, using of force and high-handedness and all of that. How would you react to that very briefly?
There is an Igbo proverb that says, where a son is crying and pointing at, a particular house, it's either the mother's concubine is there or the father's concubine.
We'll have to leave it there.
Okay,
we'll have to leave it there.
All right.
Barrister Monday Obani, thank you so much for joining us on TVC Breakfast. We'll be back right after this break, but for Ladele, we'll have to say her thank yous.